Hey y'all, welcome to another episode of Sound Healing Explained, the science and the philosophy. In the last episode, we talked about our brain waves and the unique brainwave frequency patterns of the different states of consciousness, particularly what signals those brain states send to our body systems, completely changing how they function. Now, in our modern world, most of us have a tendency to get stuck in the beta brainwave pattern, which is a high stress but high cognitive functioning state where we're problem solving, analyzing, multitasking, and it's a very useful state when it is in balance with the other brain states to maintain a healthy mind and a healthy body. Now, most of us have a tendency to get stuck in this beta loop, and prolonged time spent in the beta brain state can start to have a physical toll on our body systems and our physical health and well-being. This is because it essentially shifts us into fight or flight mode, activating our sympathetic nervous system, releasing adrenaline and cortisol, which are stress and alertness hormones. And this state suppresses our digestion and many of our regulation and our healing processes, stopping them from taking place and taking care of ourselves. So, as I said, there's nothing inherently wrong with this state. It's a very useful state when we need it, but in modern life, we have a tendency to get locked in this beta loop. So that is where sound healing comes in. Sound healing is extremely effective modality for gently shifting our brainwave patterns out of this beta state down into the lower frequency states of alpha and theta. In these lower frequency states, our parasympathetic nervous system becomes activated. It releases endorphins and dopamine, and it shifts our body out of that fight or flight mode into the modes of rest, digest, and repair. Once we are gently shifted into these lower states by the healing frequencies of the sound bowls, once those frequencies shift our brainwave patterns, essentially our mind gets out of the way and our body systems are signaled that they are free to direct all the available energy that they need into these healing and repair functions that have been suppressed when we're in the beta state. So this is a big part of why sound healing is so effective. So in this episode, we're going to dive into exactly how sound healing works to directly interface with and change our brainwave frequency and essentially guide our brain into a different state of consciousness, and then the associated healing effects of our bodies that stimulates. We will also go into sound healing's ability to completely bypass the brain altogether and work directly on our nervous system, our muscles, our cells, our joints, and our body systems as a whole, completely bypassing our brain altogether. So let's get into it. The first distinct way that sound healing can directly change and modulate our brainwave patterns is through the concept of entrainment. And the best example to illustrate this concept is the popular use of binaural beats. A lot of us have heard of binaural beats. So I'm going to explain exactly what they mean and how they work. So binaural beats is essentially playing two frequencies that are very slightly different in each of your ears. So for example, this ear would hear a sound with a frequency of 120 hertz, and this ear would hear a sound with a frequency of 125 hertz. So 120 and 125. So a 5 hertz difference between the two ears. Now, when we hear two tones that are very slightly different, our brain's natural state is to try to analyze and find synchronicity and balance and patterns. So when it hears that very slight difference, it drives our brain absolutely crazy. And it wants to synchronize these two tones so badly that what it does is the brain makes up the difference between the two. So it's a 5 hertz difference between 120 and 125. So our brain wave will actually shift to start to oscillate at 5 hertz, essentially creating a bridge between the two tones. And once our brain, if it was in the beta state going at 25 hertz, all stressed out, when it's confronted with these two tones, it essentially forces the brain into an oscillation of 5 hertz, dropping us straight into the theta state. So it's a little manipulative. It just seems a little manipulative to me, but that's just me. But it is extremely effective for people who are stuck in this beta loop and can't find their way out of it. So it can work with different frequencies. So like a 5 hertz difference will trigger the theta state between 4 and 8 hertz. You know, if it's 120 to 129, it'll be 9 hertz. It would trigger a low alpha state. And people have even used binaural beats to trigger an even higher state than beta called the gamma state, by playing, 120 to 160, creating a difference of 40 hertz and essentially forcing the brain into a state of the higher gamma brain state. So binaural beats, although it's manipulative, it is extremely effective and shows how strongly the brain wants to entrain to other frequencies and essentially create balance and harmony and synchronicity with everything that it's presented to. That is what our brain is designed to do. It's designed to analyze and make sense of and smooth everything out. So binaural beats really leans into our brain's natural tendency towards this, and by playing two different tones, one in each ear, you essentially force your brain to make up the difference between the two, immediately changing your brainwave pattern through this manipulation of binaural beats. Another way that sound healing can directly affect our brainwave patterns is through this concept called the surrender point. So, as I said, our brain is essentially an analytical system, and its natural tendency is to pick apart and look for complex patterns and synchronicities and essentially analyze something until it can fully comprehend and understand it in the sense of its patterns and its integration into the framework of our understanding. So when the brain is presented with more and more complex patterns, it will continue to analyze and analyze and analyze up to a point. And this point is the surrender point. And there reaches a level where the information that the brain is receiving becomes so complex and multi-layered that the brain essentially gives up and drops out of this high cognitive analytical beta state into the lower frequency states, where healing and relaxation start to take place, and the brain has essentially given up on cognitive functioning and says, I'm just going to passively experience this information. In the case of sound healing, this rich layered sound, I'm just going to experience it with all my senses, not try to comprehend or understand it. I'm just going to experience it in the moment. And when we shift into that alpha and that theta state, that is where our parasympathetic nervous system takes over, and all of the healing and the rest and repair functions start to really take place, and the profoundly healing physical effects of our body's natural ability to heal itself take over. The trick is that the complexity of the sound that we're presenting to our brain in order to reach the surrender point, it has to be harmonious and with a internal order. It can't be sounds of dissonant chaos that are just complex but completely chaotic. There's no surrender point in chaos. The brain knows that chaos is chaos, and it just stresses it out even further. So that can have the opposite effect. So it has to be, harmoniously integrated, complex, rich, layered sound that has internal structure and a complexity that the brain recognizes as harmonic patterns and is trying to understand. So that is why I love the Himalayan bowls so much, is because they have such rich sound in each bowl. Each bowl has a fundamental undertone and then multiple overtones overlaid when you play it. So each bowl in itself has a multi-layered harmonic pattern to it, and then when you start to pair multiple bowls together, you very quickly create an insanely complex and rich sound that has the ability to trigger this surrender point and essentially change our brainwave patterns. Now, it can be tricky because since each of the Himalayan bowls is handmade and completely unique, you have to be very careful to not just put random ones together. When I built my set, I played thousands of different bowls before I found one by one bowls that complemented each other in their under and overtones. And it's an extremely painstaking process, but your ear and the way it makes you feel knows when there's harmonic resonance, and it knows when two bowls don't go together and create dissonance. Your brain just knows that, even if you don't have a musical ear. So you have to be careful with the Himalayan bowls, and in a future video I will go into how I built my set, what sort of tools I used, and how you use these tools to know whether or not the bowls are high quality and whether or not they go together well. Because if you're trying to create a rich, complex tapestry of sound to trigger the surrender point, it has to have internal harmonic structure to it. So you do have to be careful there, because dissonant bowls played together have actually a very negative effect on our nervous system and our healing abilities. It creates more dissonance and more problems. So it's extremely important that the bowls are harmonically integrated with each other to produce these feelings of serenity and peace, and the frequencies that create the surrender point and the frequencies that naturally regulate our systems and stimulate healing on a cellular level. So when the sound gets our brain past the surrender point and the level of analysis that it can not even try to comprehend the complexity of the sound and the tones that it's hearing, and we drop into the alpha state and then even lower into the theta state, this is where our brain essentially gets out of the way, and these lower frequency brain waves trigger our parasympathetic nervous system to release endorphins and serotonin, natural painkillers and mood stabilizers, sleep regulators, and these chemicals basically flood through our body, triggering all sorts of internal rest and repair functions in the background. Sound also stimulates our vagus nerve, which signals to all of our organ systems that we are in a safe space. We do not need to be worried about fight or flight. We are in a safe and relaxed environment, and we are free to direct all of our energy into our body's natural ability to heal and repair itself. So those are the two main illustrations of how sound and sound healing practices can directly affect our brainwave patterns. And by affecting our brainwave patterns, it changes the signals to our bodies that are actively activating or suppressing different functions on a physical level. And so by manipulating our brainwave state, we can trigger the desired relaxation or healing effects in our bodies and our body's natural ability to heal itself. So, the third way that sound healing works to heal and repair our bodies actually entirely bypasses our brain altogether. Much of binaural beats, the surrender point, a lot of sound healing is focused on manipulating our brainwave patterns into healing restorative states, and then the secondary effects is what happens to our body. But sound vibrations and frequencies also have the ability to bypass our brain and work directly on our body without our brain waves or any of that needing to be involved. It's actually the physical vibrations that can trigger different healing effects, and we're going to discuss a few of those effects. The first effect is the stimulation of the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is connected to our body systems and essentially communicates to our body. It's one of the principal parts of our nervous system. It communicates to our body systems that we're in a safe space. So the vagus nerve actually responds directly to vibration. So singing or chanting or even just humming activates your vagus nerve. So if you're really stressed out, you could actually just hum a song to yourself and it'll start to trigger that vagus nerve and give you a little bit of chemical relaxation. So it responds directly to vibration. So the really intense vibrations of the singing bowls really activates it. It also, at the same time, is being activated by the alpha or theta brainwave, also activates the vagus nerve, but it also, independent of the brain, it responds directly to vibration, which is really interesting. So the vibration itself has a calming and regulating effect on your nervous system through the activation of your vagus nerve. These vibrations also pass really readily through soft tissue and our muscles, increasing localized blood flow and triggering basically micro relaxation of muscles where the vibration is contacting. And they also can work on our bones and our joints by increasing circulation and reducing inflammation where the vibration of the sound is focused around like an aching joint or something that is very inflamed. Directing the vibrations directly to that area can really have profound effects in the pain as well as the circulation and the inflammation that's going on there, driving the issue. So these are a few of sound healing's direct effects on our muscles and our joints and our nervous system. But there's also a lot of research going on with sound vibration and auditory vibrations effects on individual cells and our cellular system, because sound healing can trigger cellular regeneration at a cellular level. So not beyond our muscles, there is the relaxing effect of the vibration on the entire muscle system, but there is also sound's ability to trigger regenerative and other effects on a cellular level. And when you think about it, sound travels much more efficiently through water than it does through air. And our bodies are up to 60% water, the entire human body. And then when you look at the cellular level, our cells average even more, are based of water. Between 75 and 90% of each of our cells is water. So water transmits and responds to vibrations very, very strongly. There's all sorts of amazing cymatics showing these beautiful, intricate geometric patterns that sound vibration creates out of water molecule crystals and all sorts of different materials. The vibration of on water or sand, you can actually see these beautiful geometric patterns that the sound creates. If you look up cymatics, there's some really, really beautiful, beautiful imagery. But the effect that it can have on these water molecules that are making up our cells is very profound. And so each of these cells has its own unique electrochemical charge. It maintains an electrical charge across its membrane of every single cell. So each cell has its own baseline frequency or oscillation. And recent studies have shown that individual non-auditory cells, so not the cells in our ears associated with hearing, but just random cells in our body, non-auditory cells respond. They have the ability, they don't hear sound the way we think of it, but they experience the physical vibration of sound and they respond to it. They've found hundreds of genes across different types of cells that are turned on or off in response to vibroacoustic therapy and sound vibrations. It's really wild, and they've actually found that particularly like stem cells and undifferentiated cells and muscle cells are particularly responsive to sound, and an undifferentiated cell that hasn't decided what it's going to turn into can have its growth and its division affected by an exposure to physical vibrations of sound. There's a recent study out of Kyoto that found that exposure to specific frequencies actually stopped undifferentiated cells from turning into fat cells. So if you think of the theory that a lot of the diseases and other physical ailments that we experience are theorized to be cells that are essentially have become damaged, or their frequency has been distorted to where they're out of alignment with the frequency of the rest of our body and the surrounding cells. They've essentially lost their ability to communicate and exchange effectively with their surroundings and with the body as a whole. They've become isolated in a distorted frequency. And so with that ability of sound and sound healing to travel through the water and contact every cell of our body through this vibration, and the response of the cell to the vibration, there is the theory that sound and specific frequencies could be used to essentially recalibrate and bring those distorted cells back into alignment with their surrounding cells and the body as a whole, essentially realigning them and guiding them back into alignment and reestablishing their ability to function healthfully with the rest of the body and essentially heal the damage on a cellular level that had been done. It's really crazy to think about, and there is a lot. The science hasn't really gotten there yet, but there's a lot of ongoing studies happening right now, particularly in relation to cancer cells and the ability of certain frequencies and vibroacoustic therapies to turn on and off genes and stop the division and the spread of different cancers. So there's a lot of promising research going on in this area. The science isn't there yet, but that's kind of the theory between sound healing and its ability to work not just on our body systems and our nervous systems and our muscles and our joints, but actually on the cellular level to address even bigger health issues than what we currently think is possible through a modality like sound healing. This is a big part why I believe sound healing is so effective and so powerful and so amazing, because you are able in a sound healing session, especially where the bowls, where you lay on a nest like this and the bowls are placed directly on your body, channeling the vibration into your body systems, you are receiving simultaneously through sound healing, you're changing your brainwave patterns at the same time that you're getting the direct physical effects on your body. So you're getting immediate direct physical benefits, and then at the same time you're also getting the benefits of retraining and rewiring your brain to be able to guide itself from the high stress states that limit and suppress your body's natural healing abilities. You essentially, the sound healing practice guides your brain and shows it the pathway back to the lower alpha and theta states in our conscious life, and how we can access those states for relaxation and self-healing. So that is why I believe sound healing is so powerful, is you get the direct physical effects during the session, but you also get the changes in your brain waves and the consciousness patterns that have the potential to last much longer beyond the session. And as your brain learns to shift between those states again, better and better, as it practices more and more through the sound healing sessions or through your own healing practices outside of sound healing, sound healing just shows you that path back to be able to move your brain from a high stressful beta state into the relaxed alpha state and into the deeply restorative theta state. So this is a big part of why sound healing is so effective, is its dual ability to work on the mind and the body simultaneously for immediate effect, as well as long-lasting, profoundly changing effects on our brain health and our overall lifestyle and interaction with our reality. So in future videos, I plan to go into the human biofield and energy systems and our chakra systems, and sound healing's connection with these systems for our health and well-being. But this was really a review of the peer-reviewed science of what is happening with sound healing. So I really appreciate you hanging out with me today, and I'm going to wrap it up here because I could talk about this forever. But I think that's enough for today. So thank you again, and I look forward to seeing you in future videos while we continue to delve into the amazing world of sound healing. So thank you. Take care.